Hello and welcome to this session on the rules of squash. In this session we're going to deal with the first 7 of the 14 rules, and these rules have come into effect on the 1st of September 2025. It's under the control and direction of World Squash. There are 14 instead of the old 15 rules, and there are 6 appendices instead of the previous 8. If we look at the 14 rules here, in this session, as I said, we'll deal with the first 7. We'll look at the first 7. We have only 14 rules instead of 15. We've dropped one. That's because Rule 12 now amalgamates the old Rule 12 in its entirety on distraction, and Rule 13 on fallen objects, objects falling into the court, combining them to become conditions of play, where 12.3 gives a new rule on damp patches on the court and what one is to do in those circumstances. The old Rule 14 has now become Rule 13, illness, injury and blood injury, as it's now called, as opposed to what was illness, injury and blood. And the old Rule 15 on conduct is now Rule 14. 6 appendices rather than the previous 8, as the appendix dealing with the 3 referee system and the one dealing with the alternative scoring both have been removed. So we'll have a look at rules 1 to 7, and before we do that we look at some of the important terms relating to the court. Here we have a side view of an aerial view of a court with the front wall and side wall lines, or the out of court lines, or the outlines as we may call them. And we have the dimensions of the court being given here from wall to wall. The width of the court 6.4 meters, with the length of the court from front wall to back wall being 9.75 meters. Other lines on the court then: the service line, above which the ball must be struck for a good serve, and the short line beyond which the ball must be struck for it to be a good serve, and the half court line. If one were to continue this line onto the front, it would bisect or half the court, hence it's called a half court line. All of these lines on the court are 50 centimeters in depth. And on the bottom of the front wall we have the tin here, which comprises the tin itself and the 50-meter board just above it, collectively referred to as the tin. Just to have a look at these again for certainty and clarity, here we have the tin, the out of court line, the half court line, the service line and the short line. Rule 1 introduces us to the game and says that the single squash game is between 2 players, each on a court, striking a ball with their racket. And the court, the ball and the racket are all subject to the technical specifications that are described in Appendix 5. Rule 1.2 goes on to explain that a rally begins with a serve, a good serve, and continues as the players hit the ball alternately against the front wall. And play must be continuous. so that there's no undue delay. Rule 2 deals with the score, and nowadays we have the so-called point O'Reilly scoring system, or PARS, whereby each game lasts until the player reaches 11, but where the player must win by 2 points. In most cases, a match is the best of 5 games, but we know that in some competitions and tournaments, the earlier rounds may be the best of 3 games. You'll notice that there's no reference to a set here, although we do colloquially use the expression that was a great 5-setter. Technically, I suppose we mean that was a great 5-game match. And continuing on the theme of the score, we'll see here the result of the final of the British Open 2025 Women's, where Nouran Gohar beat Noor El Sherbini by a score of 3-2. And if you were the marker in that particular match and it was 10-4, you would have been saying something like 10-4 match ball, or maybe even championship ball. And then when Gohar won the rally, you would say 11-4 match ball. Sorry, you'd be saying 10-4 match ball or championship ball. And then you'd say 11-4 match to Gohar, 3-2. And then you would proceed to call out the winning player's game score first. So to repeat, it would be match to Gohar, 3-2, 9-11, 12-10, 7-11, 13-11, 11-4. And looking at the men's final, where Elias beat Asal 3-1, you would say at 10-4, you would have been saying 10-4 championship ball, 11-4 match to Elias. Elias wins 3-1, 11-4, 11-9, 3-11, 11-4. Traditionally, of course, we use the pen and paper, and that's been supplanted and replaced by the use of electronic refereeing. And this example here would be Score Squash, which is the one used by Squash Ireland. And of course, the benefit is that on finishing the match and clicking save, the result goes straight away into the tournament software, showing the result. And of course, anybody watching or viewing the match or following it online would be able to see the live scoring as well through Sporty HQ's Score Squash. Rule 3 deals with the officials, and 3.1 describes where the match could be officiated by a referee or a referee and a marker, each recording the score, the serve, and the box from which the serve has been taken. Typically, of course, one person does both, and under those circumstances, the player can appeal a call or a lack of a call to the same person, who then hears that appeal as the referee. And then 3.3 describes the best position, the optimal position for the referee is to be in line with the half-court line, preferably above the out-of-court line. 3.4 recommends or requires that when addressing the players, one uses the family name, where of course they have both the same family name. You would then add in the first name. Rule 3.5 deals with the many duties of the marker, which essentially deal with introducing the players and calling the play and repeating the referee's decision when an appeal is made. And Rule 3.6 deals with the duties of the referee. One could say that the referee has 3 primary duties. One would deal with court conditions and when it's suitable to play and not suitable. Secondly, the referee would deal with everything relating to time. And thirdly, the referee would deal with all appeals in deciding when something is a yes let, no let, or stroke, and that sort of thing, and the implementation of Rule 14 on conduct. There's the official in the ideal position, seated above the out of court line, in line with the half court line. And really, I'd recommend to all players and aspiring referees that they would acquaint themselves with Rule 3.5 and 3.6, whereby you read through this long list. I'd like to draw your attention not to every single thing going on here, but for example, 3.5.2. The language associated with problems in serving has been simplified in that if anything goes wrong with the serve, maybe the server foot faults, or maybe the ball strikes one of the lines, or the ball goes out of court, or the ball doesn't pass the short line. If anything goes wrong with a serve, all the marker has to call is fault. Nothing else, just the one word, fault. And then if anything goes wrong during a rally, for a double hop or something like that, you're going to say not up, or if the ball isn't struck cleanly, you're going to say not up. Or if the ball strikes the floor or the tin, you're going to say down. And if the ball hits a line or goes out of court, you will say out. Please note, the call there is out, not out of court. Everything has been simplified and the fewest words used. I'd also like to draw your attention to the fact that where a marker is not sure of a return or a serve, the marker is required to make no call. And we'll see that in the duties of the referee, if the referee believes that a marker has made a wrong call or failed to make a call, the referee is required to intervene immediately and make the call or overrule a wrong call. Therefore, a player who has a doubt about a pickup or a doubt about a service may not be alone. It's possible that the referee may be in the same position. So if you lose the rally, it then makes sense to appeal that pickup or serve or whatever, because you may be rewarded with a yes let. It would of course be foolish to stop in the middle of the rally and appeal the pickup or the serve to find that the referee is happy with it and the call is no let. So the wise player, if they lose the rally, can then appeal something about which they had a doubt, and they should never take the referee's or marker's silence as definitive proof that the shot was or serve was good. Rule 3.6 and the referee. 3.6.7. The referee will make the calls in relation to time, so that, for example, halfway through the warm-up, the referee will call half-time. There's no need to call it if the players have already swapped sides. You would then call time when the full 4 minutes have elapsed. Then, during intervals, whether the interval between the warm-up and the first game or the interval between games, when you're coming to within 15 seconds of the time being up, the referee should call 15 seconds, and of course it's the duty of the player to be close enough to hear that, and they must be back on time. And when the time is up, the referee will call time, and the players are expected to be on court. Again, I repeat that it's important that you read all of these parts to rules 3.5 and 3.6, but I would bring your attention to two further points in relation to the referee's duties. Rule 14 now requires the referee to penalise a player who is attempting to influence the referee. However, that doesn't mean that a player can't ask for an explanation as to why the referee's decision is yes let or a no let. As you'll see here, 3.6.11, the referee may give an explanation for a decision. They're not obliged to, but if it helps the flow of the match, they should, but they wouldn't be repeating the same explanation regularly. Once would be enough to explain the point. For example, the referee may say, I'm giving a let there and not a stroke because the player interfered with your swing, therefore it's a let, but your swing wasn't prevented, you could have played the ball, therefore I'm giving a let only for safety. Or on appeal for obstruction, the referee may say, yes, there was obstruction, but the ball was a winner and therefore no let. Also, secondly, I want to refer to how the referee will have to apply Rule 14 on conduct if a player's behaviour is unacceptable, and there's a lot more about that when we get to Rule 14. Rule 4 deals with the warm-up. It's before the commencement of the first game. The players warm up the ball together on the court. It has a maximum duration of 4 minutes, and after 2 minutes you must change sides. Rule 4.2 says each player has an equal opportunity to play the ball, and it's really important that the referee penalise unfair warm-up, in that if a player is hitting the ball back to themselves too much, for example, any more than 3 or 4 times hitting the ball back to themselves before they strike the ball back to their opponent, would be looked at as an unfair warm-up, and really the official should bring that to the attention of the unfair of the offending player. Rule 5 deals with the service. The ball must be dropped from the racket or the hand, and before the ball strikes the floor or a wall or anything worn by a player, it must be struck by the server. We see here on the right one of possibly the best exponents of the backhand serve, Derek Ryan, where he's moving out of the box, but as he strikes the ball, he's got one foot touching the floor entirely inside the service box. He's maximizing his position here, but again, to repeat, when the racket strikes the ball, the server has at least 1 foot touching the floor entirely inside the service box, as he has here. If anything goes wrong with the serve must hit the front wall first, then it must drop into the opposite quarter court without striking the short line or the half court line or the out of court line. And were anything to go wrong with the serve, the marker's call would be fault. It's quite simple now. Anything wrong with the serve, and all the marker has to say is fault. Rule 6 deals with the play. So assuming the serve has been right, it's now up to the receiver to return the ball. And the return of the ball is good if it's struck correctly. Now, striking it correctly means a clean strike at the ball without hitting it more than once and without carrying it or scooping it. It mustn't hit any of the... It mustn't strike the player or the player's clothing, so that the ball is then returned correctly. It must return to the front wall, either direct to the front wall or by striking a side wall first. It mustn't hit either the floor or the tin, and that makes the return good. And of course, it mustn't be struck out. Anything when there's a problem with the return or during a rally, if there's a doubt about the pickup, it's going to be not up. If it bounces more than once, or if it's a carry, or it's not struck properly, or if it strikes the player's clothing, that's not up. Or if it hits the floor or the tin, the call is down. And if it strikes the line, or it strikes the wall above the out of court line, the call is out. And notice please, it's not out of court. And then the final rule we look at in this session, Rule 7, dealing with intervals, and we'll meet 3 of the time changes that were brought in by the September 2025 rules here. There is a 1 minute interval between the warm-up and the first game. Previously that was 90 seconds. There is a 2 minute interval between all games. Previously that was 90 seconds. And there's a maximum of 2 minutes allowed for equipment change, where, for example, the string goes, or the racket breaks, or the sole or heel of the shoe comes off or loose, or somebody has a problem with contact lenses, or prescription eye guards, or the eye guards fall or are damaged, or if there's any problem with equipment, the player has a maximum of 2 minutes, whereas it was previously a maximum of 90 seconds. We'll deal with Rule 13 on blood injury when we get there. And finally, during any interval, either player may strike the ball. That's it. Thanks for your attention. We've looked at the first 7 of the rule changes, and in our second session we'll deal with rules 8 to 10. Thanks for your attention, and maybe see you again soon.